After Marco lost his sight, I took care of him for 2 whole years. But on the day he recovered, I rushed to the hospital room, only to see him sobbing in his ex-girlfriend's arms. I actually recovered a long time ago. I just didn't tell Valentina, he said. Because the first person I wanted to see when I regained my sight was you. So I fulfilled his wish and disappeared completely from his world. But he regretted it. Later he came knocking on my door in the pouring rain, eyes covered, begging me to unwrap his bandage one more time. And then his mortal rival walked out of my bedroom. He lazily wrapped an arm around me, kissed me, and chuckled, "Excuse me, but is this some kind of performance art?" Chapter 1. Marco Bai had been blind for 2 years. On the day he recovered, I cleared my entire schedule just to be there for the moment he regained his sight. But before I could even push open the door to his hospital room, I saw something blinding through the crack. The gauze had already been unwrapped and tossed carelessly on the bed. Marco, eyes bloodshot, was tightly holding another woman in his arms. Sandra Run, his ex-girlfriend. He clutched her like something he'd lost and finally found again. "I could have taken the bandages off long ago," he said. "I just didn't tell Valentina. Because the first person I wanted to see when I regained my vision was you." The woman in his arms covered her mouth, crying like a fragile beauty in a tragic romance. "Marco, I've missed you so much these past 2 years. But when I heard you had a new girlfriend, I didn't dare come near. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I just want you to be safe." Marco's voice trembled. "Sandra, I never blamed you." Through the glass window and the door frame, I could clearly see the shimmer of tears in both of their eyes. Even though I was the one who was supposed to be Marco Bai's girlfriend now. But just looking at them, I could feel the love between them. What a joke. What a farce. Whenever Marco blinked a little too much, I'd panic, worried if he was uncomfortable. But now, right after surgery, the moment his eyes saw the light again, he wept for someone else. Chapter 2. In the end, I still opened the hospital room door. The two of them sprang apart like they'd been shocked, and both instinctively wiped their tears. The room fell dead silent. Sandra spoke. "First, I heard Marco had surgery, so I just came to check on him." I let out a cold laugh. "Miss Rin, you must be very busy. It's been over 2 years since his accident left him blind, and you only found time today to visit." Sandra choked on her words. A second later, her eyes filled with pitiful, shimmering tears. Marco's face darkened, and almost immediately his voice rose sharply as he shouted my name. "Valentina, Lin, that's enough." Then he turned and softened his tone to comfort Sandra. "Sandra, you should head back for now." Sandra Run reluctantly left the room. Only then did Marco turn to me again, his tone now weary. "Didn't you have a gala to attend tonight? Why did you come to the hospital?" "Yeah, that gala meant everything to me. My agent had planned to introduce me to a legendary figure in the music world, top-tier resources." Did he really not know why I came? I didn't answer his question. Instead, I asked, "Marco, do you even remember who your girlfriend is?" He froze, then quickly came back to his senses, his brows furrowed. "Sandra just came to visit, that's all." My eyes just started to recover. "Valentina, do you really have to nitpick at me now?" The irritation in his voice chilled me. "Fine, I won't nitpick. Take care." A flicker of confusion crossed Marco's eyes. "Valentina, what do you mean by that?" There was a warning in his tone. I didn't say anything. I just tossed the carefully selected bouquet of lilies into the trash can. Chapter 3. Even after I got home, my chest still ached with dull pain. Marco Bai and I met at a music festival. As partners, I sang and played the piano, and he was my dedicated lyricist and composer. It took us 10 whole years to rise from obscurity to brilliance. Back when we were broke, we shared a basement apartment, split a single bowl of instant noodles, got by singing at bars. The day one of our songs finally went viral, Marco hugged me, voice choked with emotion. "Valentina, this is just the beginning for us." I nodded, fiercely, tears in my eyes too. From then on, we poured our souls into creating music. And eventually we made it. From short videos to TV soundtracks to big national galas, our songs were everywhere. I became the new pop diva. And Marco's talent was finally recognized. Fans began to call him God Bai. One night at an award show, I was performing on stage while Marco watched from the audience. The live comments were exploding. "Did y'all see By God in the audience? The way he looks at Valentina, Total hard eyes. Their whole dynamic screams fate. From rock bottom to stardom, it's always been the two of them. Look at that lovesick yet proud expression on his face. Is it the music he's proud of, or the one singing it? Can you even tell? By God, countless fans were shipping us like crazy. I read those comments over and over, blushing. My heart pounded like it was trying to break free. But Sandra's return shattered all my illusions. Chapter 4. Sandra had just started gaining attention with a few cutesy pop songs. We met on a music competition show. From the start, she clung to Marco's arm and sweetly called him senpai. Turns out she was 3 years below him in college, a junior from the same school. Sandra lavished Marco with admiration and worship. At first, I didn't think much of it. Marco's talent was something anyone could admire. But soon I realized something was off. He started spacing out when writing songs, even smiling like an idiot from time to time. Until one day, he told me, "Valentina, I'm with Sandra Rin now. You'll give us your blessing, won't you?" It felt like a bolt of lightning split my mind in two. My longtime crush was pronounced dead on the spot. I used up every ounce of strength to squeeze out a polite smile, of course. Marco fell hard. Sandra wanted Marco to write songs exclusively for her. He willingly paid massive breach of contract penalties just to leave me and break his contract with the company. I tried to persuade him your style is versatile, but Sandra's voice only suits sugary love songs. You two aren't musically compatible. But he just smiled and said it's fine, as long as she's happy. I was speechless. I no longer had any standing to stop him. The next time I heard about him, it was a year later. He and Sandra had failed to collaborate, fought constantly. His career hit rock bottom, and eventually they broke up. Marco, emotionally wrecked, got into an accident and lost his sight. After everything we'd been through in our years of struggle together, I couldn't bear to see him like that. So I brought him home. Chapter 5. After going blind, Marco fell into a spiral of despair and self-loathing. He would smash anything within reach, and he'd lash out at me, the one caring for him. "Valentina Lin, are you just here to laugh at me? I can't write songs anymore. Why are you sticking around a useless man like me? Don't tell me you actually like me." I let him vent and never denied that I liked him. I just stayed by his side. Just like before, back in the basement, the practice room, the studio, our shadows overlapping. Until one night, half a year later, I had a last-minute program taping and got home past midnight. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Marco curled up on the couch, looking lost, tears streaming down his pale face. Hearing me come in, his unfocused eyes instinctively turned toward the sound, then dropped again. He looked like an abandoned puppy, carefully asking, "Valentina Lin, will you have other lyricists and composers from now on?" I froze. My agent had introduced several potential new collaborators, but I'd turned them all down. I gently reached for his hand and whispered, "No, Marco. It'll always be you." Suddenly, he hugged me tightly, his voice trembling, almost begging, "Valentina, don't leave me. Let's always stay together, okay?" My hand froze midair. After a moment, I choked out, "Okay." That night, he kissed me in his world of darkness. My body went weak as he pulled me into bed with him. By my ear, he whispered with bitter regret, "Valentina, I hate these eyes of mine. I just wish I could see your face again." His voice was full of sorrow. All I could do was hold him and soothe him, telling him everything would be okay. Finally, after a year of treatment, Marco I had hope of seeing again. I was filled with joy, imagining how his gorgeous starry eyes would look at me once more. But what did I end up seeing? Marco embracing Sandra like no one else existed. And him almost proud, saying he had recovered long ago. He just didn't tell me. Because the first person he wanted to see was Sandra, not me. Chapter 6. Once Marco regained his sight, his anxiety vanished. But the Marco who used to cuddle me, kiss me, cling to me, was gone. 3 days later, after being discharged, he came to my place, packed his things, and said he was moving out. "Art needs solitude." I stood there stunned. Solitude? Then what were all those years we spent together? But I didn't even get the chance to ask. By the time I came to my senses, he had already left. Since then, it was like Marco and I entered a cold war. I numbly threw myself into work. A full week passed without a single message from him. Then the company booked me for a music competition show. It was live competitive and required 3 brand new songs in a short time frame. My agent sisterly recommended a few new composers and lyricists. As I browsed their previous works, I couldn't help but think of Marco. I had once promised him he would always be my exclusive songwriter. Holding on to a sliver of hope, I messaged him, "Will you come on the show with me?" The moment I hit send, my heart was pounding. Soon he replied, "I already have other plans." Whatever hope I had died right then. When Sisterly asked again about my choice of partner, I gripped my phone tightly and forced out through clenched teeth, "Sisterly, just pick someone. I'll go with whatever you decide." Chapter 7. It wasn't until the day of the show that I finally met the so-called hand-picked genius Lee Jia had told me about. He was a young-looking guy. He walked up to me and extended a slender, pale hand. "I'm Oscar, your new lyricist and composer." Looking at his sharp features and that air of casual indifference, I was instantly flooded with a sense of unreliability. But out of courtesy, I still shook his hand. "I'm Valentina Lin." We walked into the live set together, and the other guests instantly fell silent. When I looked up, I realized, sitting on stage were Marco and Sandra. My eyes met Marco's eyes in midair. His expression showed a hint of surprise. Clearly, he hadn't expected me to be here. I clenched my palm hard, trying to stay calm. But in my mind his message kept echoing, "I already have other plans." I walked up beside him, eyes slightly red, and asked, "So Marco, the other plans you mentioned, was it coming on this show with Sandra?" Chapter 8. Marco didn't say a word, his brows furrowed tight. Soon his gaze landed on Oscar standing beside me, and his lips pressed into a thin line. Sandra Wren, on the other hand, smiled sweetly. "Valentina Lin, is this your new partner? He looks a bit unfamiliar." The moment her words dropped, the live stream comments exploded. "I sent this the legendary CP Marco, why Valentina, who's long gone? Why does Sandra sound so fake sweet and shady? Please Marco, why Valentina, have been over for years. Can't you see who by God is sitting next to now? Exactly. What is he supposed to be shackled to Valentina forever? He writes songs, he's not her property." Anyone remember the news about By God's car accident? He's been out of the spotlight for 2 years, probably healing. Before I could respond, Oscar casually lifted his eyes and gave Sandra and Marco a mocking glance. "Yep, Valentina Lin is in high demand. I waited a long time just for the chance to partner with her. And I owe it all to someone who didn't know what he had." The sarcasm was thick. Marco and Sandra's expressions immediately soured. The live comments went wild again. "Who the hell is this newbie talking like he owns the place? By God's face is darker than the bottom of a pot. Poor guy, out for 2 years only to be insulted by a rookie. By God, shut him down, put him in his place." The host, clearly enjoying the chaos, jumped on the chance and threw the question to Sandra. "So Sandra, how did you end up inviting Mr. Marco as your partner this time?" Sandra gave a shy smile and looked at Marco with eyes full of affection. "Of course, to support Marco's return. Only I know how hard it's been for him these 2 years. After the accident, he went through treatment while enduring endless industry pressure. Now that he's finally stepping back into the light, I'm proud of him." I suddenly looked up. Calling him Marco on a live broadcast was seriously misleading. She was implying that she'd been by his side all this time, loyal and devoted. And her so-called industry pressure was clearly throwing shade at me. People had once spread nasty rumors about me, saying Marco and I had a falling out when we split professionally, saying I threatened to blacklist both him and Sandra. Now Sandra was weaving lies and half-truths, trying to get the internet to crucify me. And the worst part, she even had tears in her eyes, playing the poor victim. I instinctively looked at Marco. I wanted to know, could he defend me just once, even just once? But he kept looking at Sandra, not breaking eye contact, eyes full of emotion. Yes. If not for Sandra, I probably wouldn't be standing here today. I laughed at myself. Meanwhile, the comment section exploded again. Wait, is what Sandra said true? Was Valentina really trying to ruin them out of jealousy? Chill. Sandra's words were vague. Don't overanalyze. Marco and Sandra really suffered, huh? No wonder they vanished for 2 years. They were being silenced. Valentina, get over yourself. You used to sing songs Marco wrote. That doesn't make you his girlfriend. Valentina is honestly disgusting. What a farce. My boyfriend was now standing next to another woman on a show, watching as I got smeared and hated online. And still not a word of defense from him. I suddenly felt like it was all so meaningless. And just then I heard a low chuckle beside me. I turned to see Oscar lounging in his seat looking at Marco with amused interest. "Oh, Mr. Bice says he's been oppressed since we're all here, and the topic's out in the open. Why don't you tell everyone the full story, just so no one gets the wrong idea and says you're making things up out of thin air?" His tone sounded politely curious, but anyone with ears could hear the biting sarcasm. Sandra's face froze. Marco's face darkened instantly. Chapter 9. It took Marco 3 or 4 seconds of silence before he finally spoke again. "This has nothing to do with anyone else. It's my own issue. After the accident, I lost my sight. The physical and mental toll was immense. I've been working on getting better." Sandra immediately chimed in, "Right, digging up those 2 painful years is just too cruel for Marco. Please let's not tear open his wounds again." As she spoke, tears welled up, looking every bit the caring, selfless girlfriend. And sure enough, the live stream comment section exploded with sympathy. "My heart aches. By God, just wanted to move on but got backstabbed by his longtime partner, and he can't even see. Thank God Sandra never left his side, unlike Valentina, who burns bridges the moment she's done with you. Valentina's new partner doesn't seem any better. Was throwing shade at By God earlier too." The comments were on fire. I suddenly let out a laugh. "Sandra, if I remember correctly, Marco's been living in Beijing this whole time, right? But you've been abroad these past 2 years, haven't you? I recall seeing your posts, watching fashion shows in Vienna, traveling the world, concert hopping, posting vlogs." Sandra's face went pale on the spot. Back when she was with Marco, she loved making vague, suggestive comments to steer public opinion, and I took the fall for it more than once. Every time I tried to call her out, Marco would defend her and ask me to let it go. Eventually, Sandra really believed that I'd endure anything for Marco's sake. What she didn't expect was, even Marco's face wasn't worth that much to me anymore. I gave her a sidelong glance and continued, "Too bad how you were out there living your best life while Marco couldn't see any of it. When he first went blind, it was awful. He wouldn't eat, got stomach problems, and I had to feed him. He couldn't write, smashed 3 pianos, and I had to fix them. He couldn't even find the bathroom without help. I had to lead him there step by step. Oh, and I remember he only got into that accident because he was trying to chase you to the airport before you left the country." "That's enough, Valentina." Marco suddenly cut in, voice low and tense, his face full of embarrassment. "Stop it." The host, sensing things getting out of control, quickly stepped in to smooth things over. "All right, let's wrap up the personal talk. Now let me introduce the show's creative rules." I turned to the camera with a perfectly polite smile. "Sure." I'd said just enough. No one to stop. Those few sentences were more than enough for the fans to start digging into the truth. Since they love putting on a show so much, I might as well help them make it go viral. Chapter 10. Because the show was live-streamed even before recording finished, multiple topics had already blown up on social media. The top trending ones were hashtag Marco and Valentina be hashtag Valentina one-sided love, hashtag Marco blinds, and fans spoke up for me. So it was Valentina who took care of By God all this time. Turns out Marco's car accident happened because Sandra was leaving the country. Sandra's so fake, trying to twist the narrative and throw dirt on Valentina. This is just embarrassing. Of course, there were also diehard Sandra stans. Can Valentina's dog stop barking? Just look at By God's attitude. Sandra is the real one he loves. Exactly, he came specifically to team up with Sandra. Valentina's just bitter and desperate to follow them here. Without By God writing for her, Valentina's totally mid. Has she even dropped a single in 2 years since we were allowed to use our phones during break? Sandra and Marco quickly learned what was going on. So when we resumed the live stream, both of their faces looked awful. In contrast, Oscar and I worked surprisingly well together. Oscar had that effortlessly cool, slightly roguish teen look and cracked light jokes to liven up the mood. During one of the game segments, he even shocked everyone with his perfect pitch. Overnight, his follower count skyrocketed, from just double digits to nearly 5 million. Once the stream finally ended, Marco came straight at me backstage. He grabbed my wrist tightly, his eyes unreadable. "Oscar, he's your new lyricist and composer." I yanked my arm free and nodded perfunctorily. "Yes." Marco's tone immediately turned cold. "What kind of taste is that? You're seriously bringing some inexperienced kid on a show like this?" I couldn't help but let out a mocking laugh. Isn't that because you refused to join me on the show, just so you could come with Sandra? Marco stiffened. His brow furrowed, but he still spoke like it was completely justified. Sandra hasn't had much exposure these past 2 years. She needs buzz and attention, and so do I. It's just a mutually beneficial collab. I took a deep breath, trying to stay composed as I asked, "So you pushed me into the fire just for your little PR stunt?" Twisting the truth, trying to give Sandra credit for the 2 years I spent caring for you, just to polish her image. Marco paused, then replied with disappointment in his voice, "Valentina, don't you think you're being a bit petty, Sandra? And I just needed a topic to gain some traction for our comeback. Why would you assume we're being that nasty? That was when I knew it was time. Marco, this is the end for us." His face went blank for a second. But then his tone turned impatient again, assuming I was just acting out. "Valentina, you used to be so understanding. Why do you always get so dramatic when it comes to Sandra? You think breaking up is something to say so lightly?" I looked him in the eyes and said softly, "I'm serious." Marco frowned, about to say more, when a whiny voice from outside interrupted. "Marco, are you in there? It's so dark." I twisted my ankle. "Come help me, please." It was Sandra Rin calling. I scoffed and silently began counting down in my head. 3. Marco's face instantly filled with concern.
2.
He let go of my hand and turned around.
1.
He pushed open the door and rushed toward the voice. I stood there quietly, watching it all unfold. As Marco carefully guided Sandra through the dark hallway, it seemed he had forgotten something. That once upon a time, I too had led him through the darkness step by step. Chapter 11. The breakup had already been made official. I also took the liberty of blocking and deleting all of his contact info. He had left in a hurry last time, taking only a small portion of his belongings. There were still many of his things left at my place. I packed everything up and mailed it to the apartment he lives in now. Marco called me using a new number. I picked up. His tone was icy, accusing. "Valentina, what the hell are you doing? Is this all because of Sandra?" I lowered my eyes and spoke softly. "I'm not being dramatic. I told you. I meant every word." Marco let out a cold laugh, then continued, "And your career, you throwing that away too? If you're not working with me, who do you even have? That rookie with 0 credentials?" For a moment I froze. Marco always sounded so certain. When he was blind, he was sure I'd never leave him. Now that he could see again, he was sure I needed his talent. I didn't reply. And maybe because of that, he thought my silence was a sign of agreement. His tone grew colder. "Valentina, don't come begging me when you regret this."
"Fine.
"I'll never regret it." Almost on instinct, I forced the words out, then hung up right away. Chapter 12. After that day, I locked myself in the recording studio. I let my mind go blank, looping the very first hit song I ever released. It felt like I had hit a wall. Even songs that once stirred my soul now felt tired and overplayed. Was it because of Marco? Maybe not. I kept replaying those tracks, trying to recapture the feeling from the beginning. From dawn to dusk, time passed unnoticed. I didn't even realize someone had entered the studio. When I finally snapped out of it and looked up, I nearly screamed. A man in a white t-shirt and black pants was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. When he saw me look his way, he raised an eyebrow. "How did you get in here?" This was my personal studio. No one could enter without permission. Oscar strolled in casually and plopped down cross-legged on the floor. "Ligia sent me." He listened for a moment to the song playing from the speakers, then scoffed. Such a unique mezzo-soprano wasted on lyrics and arrangements like this. His blunt critique, especially coming from someone so young, made me frown instinctively. But he didn't seem to care, and continued, "You're chasing commercial appeal at the cost of your own voice's essence." His words stunned me. I instinctively argued, "I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Making music is always about compromise." Oscar chuckled softly. "You could have gone further. But instead, you chose to stand still." I opened my mouth to refute him, but found I had nothing to say. Because the truth was, I'd known it all along. That first viral hit brought us fame and opportunities. It also gave Marco a clear direction for our future work. He kept churning out similar songs to match the trend. But trends are fleeting, and the only way we could keep up was through quantity over quality. That's why my music career never reached the acclaim I dreamed of. Because music at some point had to bow to fame and profit. That was Marco's lesson to me. Now, as I sat there listening to those familiar melodies, I felt lost. Valentina. Oscar suddenly called my name. I looked up and met his clear, unwavering gaze. Later, even after he had left the studio, I still couldn't get his words out of my head. He had said from now on, enjoy the stage. Chapter 13. Soon the next round of the show began recording. I was still caught in the middle of the online controversy, and Oscar being a newcomer attracted a lot of doubt. In contrast, Marco and Sandra's duo received overwhelming support. After all, Marco had written so many classic hits and was finally returning to the public eye after much hardship. Expectations were sky high. Oscar and I were practically reduced to background extras. For the first challenge, each team had to create a brand new song within a limited time. The theme, Breaking the Cocoon. As soon as I saw the theme, a concept already formed in my mind. It was well within my comfort zone. Until Oscar snapped his fingers in front of me. I blinked and looked at him in confusion. He had this knowing expression on his face. You're thinking about those fast-paced, heavy-beat songs you used to do with Marco, aren't you? I was stunned. He smiled. A lot of your old songs were like that. But don't you think they went viral on short video platforms because of a trend? More like a fleeting illusion than true impact. I stammered. He waved his hand, dismissively grabbed his guitar, and locked eyes with me. This time follow my lead, Valentina. You're capable of so much more than that one style. After a long silence, I nodded and clenched the slip of paper with the word, breakthrough, in my palm. Oscar really was a gifted songwriter. Both the man and his music carried something deeply sincere. He gave me a rough draft and softly hummed it for me. The lyrics were an abstract metaphor for transformation, starting in hazy entrapment and ending in a butterfly's first flight. The melody didn't rely on flashy formulas or overproduced tricks, but it delivered raw, intense emotion. Maybe this is what real talent looks like, I teased with a smile. Oscar shook his head and pointed to the sheet music on the table. I just think, if I don't write something worthy, it's a waste of your voice. Chapter 14. While our side was heating up, things next door weren't going so well. 2 years apart hadn't changed much. Marco still stuck to his rigid songwriting patterns. Sandra could still only handle sugary little love songs. Neither of them was willing to compromise, which meant the song style couldn't be finalized. By the day of the live performance, I finally understood what utter mismatch looked like after hearing Sandra's song. Marco clearly wanted this track to mark his big comeback. So he wrote it with a grand theme, Breaking the Cocoon, his go-to inspirational style full of soaring highs and lows. If I had sung it, it would have been safe. But for Sandra Run, it was incredibly risky. Her voice simply couldn't carry something that demanding. Neither of them could agree, so they had to settle somewhere in between. The final result, a complete disaster. Next, it was my turn. While waiting backstage, Oscar came up beside me and asked softly, nervous? I wanted to say no. After all, I'd performed countless songs on stage. Why would I be nervous? But in truth, my heart was pounding in my chest. I had a feeling that this might be my real breakthrough moment. When I didn't answer, Oscar went on talking to himself. I'm nervous. I was surprised. He gets nervous? Oscar lowered his gaze. His usually cool, calm voice quivered slightly for the first time. I'm nervous. Because this is the first time you'll sing one of my songs. A song I wrote for you. Chapter 15. I stood under the spotlight listening as the intro flowed into my ears. The lyrics and melody poured out of me as naturally as breathing. In the span of one song, it felt like my world had been rebuilt. New green sprouted from a barren wasteland. When the final note ended, the audience was utterly silent. A moment later, a wave of thunderous applause broke out. I exhaled deeply and lifted my skirt slightly to step off the stage. Oscar was waiting at the side, leaning coolly against the wall. But the moment he saw me, his eyes curved into a warm smile. Miss Lin, your performance was flawless. No matter the results, congrats in advance. Of course, I understood what he meant by congrats. I smiled back. Just then Marco walked over. He stared at me with a complicated expression, his tone sharp. As soon as he spoke, what kind of song was that? Does it even suit you, Valentina? I know you best. This style is too risky for you. I couldn't help but sneer. Wow, Mr. Bai must be really bored if he's even trying to manage his competitors' song choices now. Oscar stepped in front of me and said casually whether it suits her or not depends on the audience's reaction. There's no such thing as an absolute should in music, right, mister? By Marco looked like he wanted to reply, but then Sandra suddenly bounced over and grabbed his arm. Marco, where were you just now? I've been meaning to ask. How was my performance? She blinked, those big round eyes looking sweet and innocent. Honestly, even I couldn't bring myself to say it was awful. The atmosphere froze awkwardly. Of course, Oscar just had to chime in. It was great. Definitely a lot of room for improvement. Sandra's face instantly turned stiff. I couldn't hold it anymore and burst out laughing. Thankfully, there were no cameras around. Otherwise, I'd be publicly roasted again. Just in case, I quickly dragged Oscar, this little instigator, toward the lounge. His face looked even more innocent than Sandra's. Did I say something wrong? I gave him a knock on the head. No. You're perfect. Later, the competition results were revealed. I placed second. The first spot went to a veteran artist. I had no complaints. As for Sandra's song, dead last, at risk of elimination. When they left the stage, Marco looked nothing like the man who once scolded me so confidently. His frown was so deep he could have cracked a walnut with his eyebrows. Oscar, fresh off stage, and clearly enjoying the drama, called out to his back, "So, Mr. Bai, do you still think that song didn't suit Miss Lin? What a menace." I stood off to the side, torn between laughter and exasperation. Chapter 16. After the show, I went to watch the live stream replay. I had already mentally prepared myself for a storm of criticism. After all, rankings don't tell the whole story. The rumors were still out there. One performance couldn't change everything. But the tone of the comments was completely different from what I expected. What's going on? Did Valentina change her style? Are my ears broken? This new composer actually makes Valentina sound better than before. If we apply the scientific method, same singer, different songwriter, it's obvious. The problem was Marco. Been meaning to say this. Valentina's new lyricist is crazy handsome. The chemistry between them is off the charts. On top of that, after hearing Marco and Sandra's performance, the comments were merciless. Sandra's singing was all over the place, and Marco's over-the-top lyrics and melody made it worse. Painful to watch. They deserve that dead last ranking. Seriously, it was awful. Weren't people saying Valentina was the one clinging to Marco? Funny how quiet they are now. Both the comment section and the forums were buzzing with debate. But thankfully, in this industry, everything boils down to the music. I put down my phone and headed to Sisterly's office. As I approached, I heard voices through the slightly open door. "Are you serious, coming back early just to be Valentina's full-time composer?" Oscar's voice floated out, casual as ever. "If she's willing, I'd love nothing more." Sisterly sounded exasperated. "If President Sue finds out, I'll lose my job." "Okay." I froze outside the door. The President Sue, she mentioned, could only mean our company's CEO. So, Oscar was that Sue's little brother, the one who had been studying abroad all these years. No wonder he didn't bother with the usual pleasantries on set. No wonder he couldn't care less about industry politics or fake smiles. If I had that kind of background, I wouldn't put up with this crap either. I was still standing there stunned when the door suddenly opened. Oscar and I locked eyes, both of us instantly blushing. He stammered, Valentina, I can explain." Chapter 17. Oscar and I sat on the studio couch. He lowered his head, quietly confessing, "Do you remember, 4 years ago you ran into me in a practice room? Actually, never mind. You probably don't. I was wearing a mask. You never saw my face." There was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. But as he spoke, fragments of memory began to surface. That was when Marco and I had just started gaining recognition in the industry. One day, I brought a new sheet of music to a practice room only to find a stranger already inside. He wore all black, a cap, and a mask covering himself completely. With a guitar in hand, he sat there strumming and singing softly to himself. I stood at the door listening for a long time. Eventually, I couldn't help clapping, genuinely impressed. "Did you write that? The melody is beautiful. Just as good as my partner's." He looked up and met my gaze for a few seconds but said nothing, just picked up his guitar and left. What I didn't know was, right after that he went to a company executive and asked about me. My top agent, Sisterly. At this point I had to interrupt him. "You mean, I encouraged you back then?" Oscar let out a soft chuckle and shook his head.
No.
What I thought back then was, wow, your partner must be amazing if he's on par with me. I couldn't help laughing out loud. Oscar By said that once he knew who I was, he listened to all my songs over and over again. Each time, he felt the same: that voice deserves better songs. He lowered his eyes again, lashes trembling. After that, I started paying attention to you without meaning to. And every time I saw your name next to Marco's, I felt annoyed. I stared at him blankly, not knowing how to react. Not that he was expecting one. But the usually sharp face now held a rare trace of grievance. After you split from him, I thought this was my chance. You'd need a new partner, right? So I carefully prepared my portfolio and asked Sisterly to recommend me to you. But he paused, giving a bitter laugh. But you didn't even look at me. Even the dinner I went through all the trouble to arrange, you ghosted me. That night you went to visit Marco in the hospital, didn't you? I let out a soft Only then did I realize the well-connected, promising musician Sisterly tried to introduce me to that night was Oscar. He went on for 2 full years. I was always nearby, just missing that one chance to really step in front of you. Sisterly once suggested I fake a coincidence, come strike up a conversation. But I knew that wasn't your style. Then he suddenly looked up at me, voice low and hoarse. Valentina, you were meant to move forward, to go farther, shine brighter. Not to be stuck on someone who once dazzled you, but is in truth painfully mediocre. My nose stung. I tried to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. When he saw the redness in my eyes, he fumbled to hand me tissues, panicking. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to criticize you. I just think it's a waste. And I hope you'll give me a chance to walk forward with you as your partner. Chapter 18. I thought things would be awkward between us after that day. But surprisingly, they weren't. He was still the same, unchanged, unfazed. Our collaboration felt like a perfect fit, as if we were made to work together. The following episodes went smoothly. Every performance I gave ranked in the top 3, and one even hit number 1. As for Marco and Sandra, after 2 bottom rankings, they were officially eliminated. Before leaving, Marco came to see me one last time. He no longer carried the arrogance he used to have. Instead, he looked at me, eyes red, and asked softly, Valentina, didn't you once say you'd never have another partner besides me? For a moment, my heart wavered. So, he still remembered. He remembered the promise I made back when he was blind. I looked at him calmly and replied, Marco, I thought promises were supposed to go both ways. But maybe you forgot you were the one who let go first. He froze, the sadness and regret in his eyes unmistakable. But after a brief pause, he opened his mouth again, still trying to justify himself. Sandra and I are just collaborators. You're the one who insisted on breaking up. We can get back together, right? You still care about me, don't you? I chuckled softly. Then, word for word, I recited the lines I'd heard at the hospital, the ones he said to Sandra. Actually, I had already recovered. I just didn't tell Valentina, because the first person I wanted to see when I regained my sight was you. The color drained from his face instantly. I stared at him, then gave a cold, bitter laugh. While I was praying for your surgery to go well, you were lying to me, secretly planning to meet up with Sandra, just so she could be the first face you saw. Marco, in your eyes, was I just some pathetic joke to you? He stumbled backward, nearly collapsing. And in the end, all he could do was choke out a broken "I'm sorry," before fleeing in shame. Chapter 19. Because the show became a massive hit, it kept adding extra rounds, challenges, knockout stages, surprise face-offs. Filming went on for nearly half a year. For the final episode, there was no fixed theme. The producers gave the singers complete creative freedom. Before I even had a chance to discuss it with Oscar, he handed me a lyric notebook. The pages were slightly yellowed. At the top of the first sheet, in raw, slightly messy handwriting, was the title. Into the Forest. It was clear. These lyrics were written by his own hand. These words had traveled across years, and now, finally, he was placing them in front of me. I traced the dried ink with my fingertips, softly humming the melody along with the sheet music. By the final lines, my tears had started to fall. You rest in the forest, waiting to break free from your cocoon. I walk toward you, never once stopping. You are the subject of my remaining life, living inside my heartbeat. You are so free, unmatched by anyone. At the end, it read, for Valentina. Oscar, who had been nervously watching from the side, immediately leaned in when he saw something was off. Noticing my tears, he panicked, voice full of worry. This was written years ago. If you don't like it, that's okay. I'll write you a new one, okay? I quickly shook my head, wiping my eyes and choking up as I said, no, it's perfect. Thank you. I really, really love it. Only then did Oscar relax. He gently handed me a tissue and helped me wipe away the tears. Lowering my head again, I sang through the song one more time. Every single word hit right at my heart. It stung, ached, and left a trace of sweetness behind. After a long silence, I suddenly looked up at him and said, seriously, I want to sing this for the finals. Surprise flickered in his eyes, but only for a second. Then he smiled gently, as if he already knew I would choose the song. Chapter 20. During the finale, I stood center stage and sang our song into the forest with everything I had, leaving no regrets. When the host asked me after all these episodes if I had any reflections, I smiled and replied I was once trapped by certain feelings, unable to move forward. But once I crossed that line and looked back, I realized it was nothing that big. So I hope those like me who feel stuck can let go, just like the lyrics say, you are free, unmatched by anyone. The host chuckled knowingly, and in this moment, who do you want to thank the most? I thought for a moment, then slowly spoke. I want to thank my fans who have supported me from the beginning. My manager, who never gave up on me. And finally, my songwriter Oscar. Thank you for showing me a new possibility in life and in music. Across the stage, my eyes met Oscar's. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I thought I saw a shimmer of tears at the corners of his eyes. He'd become so soft lately, crying more often than he used to. No wonder fans joked that his cold, savage persona was totally falling apart. In the end, I stood with the other contestants waiting for the final rankings. The result was in. I came second, just a few votes behind the first-place veteran. It was exactly what I expected. I still had a long road ahead of me. There was no need to rush. When I hugged the winner, she whispered in my ear, you were amazing. Keep going, Valentina. The future is yours. With confetti raining down, the recording wrapped. Just as I stepped off stage, Oscar rushed up and pulled me into a hug. His voice trembled as he asked, those things you said up there, can I take it to mean that even after this show ends you'll still want to partner with me and keep going together? I patted his back and laughed softly. Of course. I said your name on stage. There's no taking it back now, is there? Oscar blinked stunned for a moment, then asked almost shyly, then if I pack myself into the deal, would you be willing to sign for that too? His eyes were filled with my reflection, nervous, hopeful, unguarded. I couldn't help but laugh. Well, I wouldn't say no. Without realizing it, Oscar had been by my side every single day for half a year. So many moments that touched my soul. How could I not be moved? One Marco isn't enough to make me give up on love forever. Life is about moving forward. I want success. And when love shows up, I won't let it slip past me. The moment I said that, Oscar practically wagged his imaginary tail, so overjoyed he didn't know where to put his hands and feet. Finally, he pulled me into his arms again and whispered by my ear, Valentina, I hope you know I love you. I smiled, lips curled upward, but tears slipped from my eyes. It felt like I had finally completely transformed. Just like our very first song, Metamorphosis. Chapter 21. After the live finale, I got a phone call. It was from Marco Bai's agent, Brother Kim. He had once been the talent scout who discovered us. But when Marco and I split professionally, he chose to follow Marco. That left me in limbo without an agent for a while until Sister Lee later took me on personally. So this call, I knew without asking, it was about Marco. Having come from nothing, I'd long learned how to leave some room in everything I did. So I answered politely. Brother Kim's voice sounded bitter and worried. Valentina, first of all, congrats. Your performance in the finals was incredible. I really didn't want to bother you, but I don't know what else to do. Marco's not doing well. He's been drinking heavily, crying your name in his sleep. He can't sleep at all. Sometimes goes 3 nights without rest. You know how it is. After the accident, he had surgeries on his lungs and stomach. His eyesight was never fully stable. There's always been a risk of relapse. He's ruining himself like this, and honestly, I'm afraid he might not make it. If you can, could you come see him, talk to him? I listened in silence, then responded courteously, sorry, Brother Kim. I'm not available. You should probably. I didn't get to finish. Oscar turned my face toward him and kissed me hard. Cutting me off mid-sentence, his lips locked with mine, hot and unyielding. The sound of our kiss echoed, blending with the call. I knew he did it on purpose. And that was okay. Let him. Meanwhile, on the other end, Marco suddenly snatched the phone out of Kim's hand. His face was dark as he listened, until the person on the other end clearly realized what was happening, hurriedly ending the call. Marco heard the cold mechanical beep of disconnection. His hand dropped, screen going black. He sank onto the floor, feeling a sharp stabbing pain in his chest. For a moment his vision went blurry. He knew. It was the onset of his eye condition returning, a warning he'd already had more than once. But right then he realized, more than losing his sight, more than losing his career, what scared him most was losing her. The woman who'd walked with him for over a decade, who had lifted him, believed in him, loved him without asking for anything in return. He loved her. Deeply. Desperately. To the bone. To the soul. But the tragedy was, she'd entered his life so naturally, grown with him like breath itself. And he never realized how deep that love went. What had Valentina Lin ever done to make him so arrogant, to make him think she would never leave? And now, why wouldn't she come back? Why didn't she care that he was sick, that he was hurting? She used to be the one who loved him most. Chapter 22. A week later, on a rainy night, Marco showed up. At the time, Oscar and I were curled up in my bedroom. He was strumming his guitar, softly humming a new tune. When Marco suddenly appeared in my living room, I was genuinely startled. Then I remembered I'd never changed the locks after the breakup, and Marco still had a key to my place. Seeing me with Oscar, he looked like he'd just been struck by an invisible blade. His already thin figure trembled, ready to collapse. Oscar raised an eyebrow.
Hey.
You know, breaking into someone's home and disturbing their creative process, not exactly ethical. Marco's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Oscar and growled, "Why are you in Valentina's home?" Oscar leaned back lazily, waving the sheet music in his hand with a smirk. "Whether it's music or love, Valentina and I are soulmates. Of course, we're always together." Marco's face turned even darker. He shouted, "I'm the one who's truly soul-connected with Valentina. We lived in a basement together, shared instant noodles, huddled for warmth. Where were you back then?" With that, he lunged at Oscar like a wild beast gone mad. They started fighting. Well, fighting was a stretch. It was more of a one-sided beatdown by Oscar. Seeing things escalate, I rushed forward and grabbed Oscar's raised wrist.
Stop it.
It's not worth it. Oscar glanced down at Marco, now in pain and utterly defeated, and gave a cold snort, then dropped his hand. I stood over Marco and finally saw the shimmer of tears in his eyes. If this had been the past, I would have rushed to wipe his tears, put medicine on him, worried sick about any little issue with his eyes. But now, all I felt was numbness. He slowly got up, head hanging low. Then from his pocket, he pulled out a bandage and tied it over his eyes. His voice trembled with sobs. "Can we start over, Valentina? This time the first person I saw was you. I won't waver again." Before I could even move, Oscar wrapped his arms around me tightly. Then he sneered at Marco and said, "Excuse me, is this some kind of performance art?" But Marco ignored him, just stood there blindly waiting for me to approach to unwrap his bandage again, like he was stuck in some delusion. It was absurd. At last I sighed and said to him, "Marco, the truth is you never saw us as soulmates. You always thought you made me, that I was nothing without you. You've been looking down on me from the start. Even now, you still don't respect my choices." His expression twisted in agony. After a long pause, his trembling hands removed the bandage himself. Tears filled his eyes, his voice hoarse. "So, Valentina, you really won't come back ever again?" I frowned slightly. "Marco, leave the key. From now on, I'll do my best not to cross paths with you. Please stay out of my life, too." The only reply I got was the sound of Marco sobbing, trembling with a heartbreak that came too late. Chapter 23. In the end, Marco left, stumbling and broken. He left the key behind. Oscar insisted on changing the locks. But in the name of changing the locks, he ended up cleaning every inch of the house, corners, edges, even the tiniest nook. He took down all the bumpers and handrails I had once installed for Marco. Completely. I watched his childish behavior with amusement, but didn't stop him. We'd both been too busy lately, and I had stopped noticing them. Honestly, they were kind of an eyesore. It was time to let them go. Thanks to Oscar's efforts, the whole place looked brand new. Proud of himself, he walked up to me, clearly expecting praise. One look at his smug face, and I knew exactly what he wanted. With a helpless smile, I tiptoed and kissed him on the lips. The next moment, he pulled me into his arms. His breath was warm, tangled with mine. As our lips met again, and again I heard him whisper between kisses, muffled and tender soulmate.
Mine.
We fell onto the carpet together, scattered around us, our music sheets and handwritten lyrics. Chapter 24. For a long time after that I heard nothing about Sandra or Marco. But that's how this industry works. Once you lose your resources, it's hard to resurface. Then months later, the hashtag #SandraExposed suddenly blew up on social media. I clicked on it only to find it was revealed by one of Sandra's own obsessed fans. The fan had unstanned her and was now lashing back, dropping receipts left and right. Turns out Sandra had been having an inappropriate relationship with a powerful investor as far back as 2 years ago. When his wife found out, Sandra was nearly blacklisted by her agency. Worse, the fan also leaked an old recording. It was from the day I broke up with Marco, caught in a backstage makeup room. In it, Marco clearly admitted that his relationship with Sandra was for publicity. That even our breakup and the 2 years I spent caring for him were all part of his marketing. The internet exploded. People flooded Marco and Sandra's social media with rage. So we were just clowns in your little drama show, poor little couple, please. More like side chick and cheating scumbag. Valentina is the real victim here. She got used, then slandered, and still cared for him for 2 years. Go stream Into the Forest.
Right now.
Give our queen her flowers. Just when everyone thought things couldn't get more dramatic, the ex-fan dropped an even bigger bomb, a video of Sandra at a prenatal checkup. And standing beside her, with an impatient expression, was Marco. The video captured a heated fight between them in the hospital. In a moment of anger, Marco shoved Sandra away. She fell and miscarried. Now it all made sense. The internet's fury reached a new peak. One misstep after another, their perfect couple image had crumbled. No surprise, fans started quitting en masse and turning against them. One thing was certain, Sandra and Marco had officially fallen from grace. They were nobodies now. I stared at my screen, feeling a weird mix of shock and poetic justice. Karma really did come back around. Just then a pair of big hands plucked the phone from my grasp. Oscar wrapped his arms around me from behind and dropped a kiss on my cheek. His voice was low, somewhere between jealous and playful. Stop looking at him already. He's bad luck. Chapter 25. Later, I was invited to attend an award ceremony, and I won the prize I had always dreamed of. That night, after the event, Oscar proposed to me. He sang and played that same song I once overheard in the practice room years ago. Then he got down on one knee, holding up a ring, his voice both reverent and trembling. We met because of this song, and I hope it can witness us stepping into something even more meaningful. Valentina, will you marry me? Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded. The very next day, we were trending across the internet. Blessings flooded in from all over. At the same time, I received an anonymous gift. It was a CD, a compilation of my early songs with Marco. There was no name on it, but I knew right away who had sent it. I gave it only a glance, then casually handed it to a passing stranger. And lifting the hem of my dress, I walked toward the figure not far ahead. Spring's sunlight warmed the earth. Oscar reached out his hand to me. So close. So free. So within reach.